Determined to find the Calabash and restore his village, Kofi assembled a group of trusted friends to join him on the search. They retraced the path the thieves had taken, following the trail left by the storm. The journey was difficult, as the landscape had been ravaged by the storm's fury, but Kofi refused to give up. The search party ventured deep into uncharted territories, facing numerous challenges along the way: dangerous animals, treacherous terrain, and the ever-present threat of losing their way. Kofi knew that the spirits were watching, and he prayed for their guidance with every step. As they journeyed further from the village, Kofi began to sense a faint connection to the Calabash, as if its magic was calling out to him. He followed this instinct, leading the group through dense forests and across wide rivers, ever closer to their goal. After days of searching, Kofi and his companions came upon an ancient cave hidden deep within a remote mountain range. The entrance was covered in vines and moss, as if nature itself had tried to conceal it from the world. But Kofi felt a powerful pull toward the cave, certain that the Calabash was inside. The group hesitated at the entrance, sensing the heavy presence of magic within. Kofi, undeterred, led the way into the dark depths of the cave. As they ventured further inside, they discovered intricate carvings on the walls, depicting stories of ancient magic and lost civilizations. The air was thick with a sense of history and power. At the heart of the cave, they found the Calabash, resting on an altar surrounded by ancient artifacts. Its glow was faint, as if weakened by the theft and the storm. Kofi approached the Calabash with reverence, knowing that they had to return it to the village and restore its magic. As Kofi reached out to take the Calabash, the spirits of the cave appeared, their forms ancient and powerful. They informed Kofi that the Calabash could only be taken back if he and his companions passed the final test of redemption. This test would determine if they were worthy of restoring the Calabash's magic and using it for the good of the village. The spirits conjured visions of the village's future. One path led to prosperity and harmony, while the other led to greed and ruin. The choice was in Kofi's hands, and the spirits warned that any selfishness or dishonesty would doom the village to a dark fate. Kofi, his heart heavy with responsibility, made a solemn vow to the spirits that he would lead his people wisely and use the Calabash only for the good of all. The spirits, satisfied with his sincerity, allowed him to take the Calabash. But they warned that the true test would come when he returned to the village. With the Calabash safely in their possession, Kofi and his companions began the journey home. The return journey was just as challenging as the search, but the Calabash's faint glow provided them with hope and guidance. Along the way, they encountered remnants of the storm's destruction, a stark reminder of the consequences of misusing the Calabash's magic. Despite the hardships, Kofi's determination never wavered. He knew that the village was counting on him, and he was determined to fulfill his promise to the spirits. The Calabash grew brighter with each passing day, as if responding to Kofi's resolve. As they neared the village, the group encountered villagers who had come searching for them, desperate for news. When they saw the Calabash, their faces lit up with hope. The village had suffered greatly in Kofi's absence, but the return of the Calabash signaled a new beginning. Kofi and his companions were welcomed back to the village with overwhelming joy. The Calabash's return was seen as a sign that the village's fortunes would soon be restored. The elders, who had prayed tirelessly for Kofi's safe return, gathered to offer their blessings and gratitude. Kofi placed the Calabash back on its pedestal in the village square, where it immediately began to glow with renewed strength. The well that had dried up suddenly began to flow again, and the withered crops started to revive. The village was once again filled with the sounds of celebration and hope. But Kofi and the elders knew that they could not simply return to the way things were before. The theft had revealed the dangers of greed and division, and they were determined to learn from the past. The council was restructured, and new laws were put in place to ensure that the Calabash's magic would be used fairly and wisely. In the weeks following the Calabash's return, the village began to thrive once more. The crops grew in abundance, the livestock flourished, and the well never ran dry. But the villagers were now more cautious, aware of the delicate balance that came with the Calabash's magic. The council, under Kofi's leadership, implemented new practices to ensure that the village's prosperity was shared equally. They set aside a portion of each harvest for those in need, both within the village and in neighboring communities. The villagers also began to teach their children the lessons they had learned about greed, unity, and the importance of using their resources wisely. Kofi, who had grown from a young man into a wise and respected leader, took it upon himself to remind the village of the spirit's warning. He knew that the Calabash's magic was a gift, but it was also a test of their character, their unity, and their wisdom. Years passed, and the village continued to prosper under Kofi's leadership. A new generation was born, one that had grown up hearing the stories of the magic calabash and the trials their parents had faced. These children were curious and eager to learn, and they looked up to Kofi as both a leader and a teacher. Kofi, now older and wiser, saw the potential in the younger generation. He began to mentor them, teaching them not only the history of the calabash but also the values that had allowed the village to thrive. He encouraged them to be curious, to seek knowledge, and to understand the importance of balance and responsibility. As the children grew, they began to take on more responsibilities within the village. They formed their own council, guided by the elders but with the freedom to bring new ideas and perspectives. The village was vibrant and full of life, a testament to the enduring legacy of the calabash and the wisdom of its people. Just as the village seemed to have reached a new era of peace and prosperity, an unseen threat began to loom on the horizon. A neighboring warlord, hearing of the village's wealth, became envious and decided to seize the calabash for himself. He sent spies to gather information about the village and its defenses, planning an attack that would catch the villagers off guard. The spies, however, were discovered by the village's scouts, who immediately reported their presence to Kofi and the council. Realizing the danger they were in, Kofi called an emergency meeting. The villagers were shocked and frightened, but Kofi remained calm and resolute. He knew that they had to protect the calabash at all costs, not just for their own sake but for the sake of future generations. The village prepared for the worst, strengthening their defenses and readying themselves for battle. But Kofi, always seeking a peaceful solution, decided to send a delegation to negotiate with the warlord, hoping to avoid bloodshed and preserve the village's way of life. Despite Kofi's efforts to negotiate, the warlord refused to back down, seeing the calabash as a prize worth any cost. As night fell, the warlord's army descended upon the village, their torches lighting up the darkness. The villagers, though outnumbered, were ready to defend their home. The battle that ensued was fierce and chaotic. The villagers fought bravely, using their knowledge of the land to their advantage. The calabash, placed in the center of the village, glowed brightly, its magic empowering the villagers and filling them with courage. As the battle raged on, Kofi led a group of warriors in a daring counterattack that turned the tide in the villagers' favor. The warlord's army, surprised by the villagers' resolve and the calabash's power, began to falter. In a final, desperate attempt, the warlord himself charged toward the calabash, but Kofi intercepted him, engaging in a fierce duel that ended with the warlord's defeat. With the warlord defeated and his army in retreat, the village was finally safe. But the cost of the battle was high. Many villagers were wounded, and the village itself had suffered damage. As dawn broke, the villagers began to tend to the injured and repair their homes, their spirits weary but unbroken. Kofi, exhausted but victorious, placed the calabash back on its pedestal. Its glow, though dimmer than before, was a beacon of hope and resilience. The villagers gathered around, offering prayers of thanks and mourning for those who had been lost. The battle had tested their strength and unity, but it had also shown them the true value of what they had. In the days that followed, the village slowly began to recover. The council, led by Kofi, worked tirelessly to rebuild and restore what had been lost. The villagers, inspired by their leader's bravery and the Calabash's magic, pulled together as never before. The Calabash's power had been tested, and it had proven to be a force for good as long as it was used with wisdom and care. As the village continued to recover, the spirits of the forest appeared to Kofi in a dream. They commended him for his bravery and leadership, but they also warned him that the Calabash's power was not infinite. The spirits revealed that the Calabash had one final gift to give, but it would come at a great cost. The spirits offered Kofi a choice. He could use the Calabash's final gift to ensure the village's prosperity for generations, but the Calabash would then lose its magic forever. Alternatively, he could keep the Calabash's remaining magic for himself and his descendants, but the village would have to find a new way to thrive without its help. Kofi awoke with a heavy heart, knowing that this decision would shape the future of the village. After much reflection, he called a meeting of the council and the village elders to discuss the spirit's message. The decision was not his alone to make, it belonged to the entire village. After much deliberation, the village reached a consensus. They chose to use the Calabash's final gift for the good of all, ensuring that their descendants would inherit a prosperous and thriving village, even if the Calabash itself lost its magic. The council, led by Kofi, performed a final ritual with the Calabash, invoking the spirit's blessing. As the ritual was completed, the Calabash's glow began to fade, its magic slowly dissipating into the land and the people. The village felt a deep sense of loss, but also a profound gratitude for all that the Calabash had given them. The fields, the well, and the livestock remained healthy and abundant, a lasting testament to the Calabash's power. Kofi, now an elder, passed on the stories and lessons of the Calabash to the next generation. The village continued to thrive, not because of the Calabash's magic, but because of the wisdom, unity, and hard work of its people. The Calabash, now an honored relic, was placed in the village shrine, a symbol of the village's legacy and the enduring spirit of its people. Watch out for the next episode of this beautiful story. Do well to subscribe and share this video with your friends and turn on your notification. Next video is dropping soon, comment next if you want it. Thanks for watching, we love you.